here to, type on out. But again, the purpose of our body is to comfort one another, to complete one another. We are husband and wife, and God made us for each other. On 63, first paragraph, letter half. Okay, he says our body is to be used to comfort and complete the other person. Something is built up in the man and the marriage when this need is met by the wife. Something is diminished when it is not. And that's what we just talked about you're going to go somewhere for the day, you can actually build your man up, okay? You leave yourselves open for temptation and far more destruction than you can imagine when this area of intimate communication is neglected. It can happen to anyone, and that's why the sexual aspect of your marriage and your husband's sexuality need to be covered in prayer. And it's best to start praying about it before you have to. And that's something, it hit me really hard that you can say we have sex every night, yet you still had an affair. That might happen, that might not. Are you praying about it? And how often are you engaging in sex? Because that will lower that temptation. Cover it in prayer and to be more faithful to Him.
Until this week, I never knew to pray about having sex with my husband. That's the honest truth. I never thought of it as a vital part of our relationship until the scriptures came up. And then I'm like, holy crap, I've got to do this. This is, and then it was like the light bulb. That was what I needed to do, was to cover it in prayer. It was something I had never thought to do. It's made a huge difference. I've even underlined on the next page to pray to God to give you the renewed energy, strength, vitality, and good attitude. To take that extra minute. And that has made the difference for me.
I don't know how your all's lives are, but going from me and my husband to having kids to interruptions to the exhaustion. Another reason why it never happened for a while was because spontaneously it didn't ever happen because I ain't ever going to be in the mood. I had 4 kids within 6 years, and maybe because of my personality and the way I'm just geared, I'm a very male attuned. That's what my husband said. The men will say something about the more raging or maybe attitude or anger, whatever your wife is, the better she may be in bed. The more calm she is, probably, her hormones a little different. And I'm very calm, so I'm not that wild, raging woman. It was my voice or in the bedroom. And that was another issue again. The time had lapsed. And Satan you just keep going on, and before you know it, but we had to discuss spontaneous versus planned. And he's like, you're nuts. And again, that was a transition we had to make from going from being single to having kids. And something else, we didn't have to plan it. What I learned, I didn't have to plan it with him. I could plan it myself. I needed to plan it because I needed to get in the mood. And there's been times that, you don't know how exhausted they are.
It doesn't matter. They can be on their deathbed. It's still good to go. Yep.
So I had to maybe start planning for myself. And then I realized exhaustion hit at 8 o'clock. So then I had to start planning, honey, can I wake you up at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow? He's like, yeah, that sounds great. Because literally, we would both be exhausted at the end of the day. That I had to plan it. And I had to plan him too so that he would know why I was waking him up. Because when is a woman waking up, his husband at 5 o'clock in the morning?
That's so funny.
And so we had a great time for a season. And then schedules changed, and one of us started getting up earlier, and it didn't work. And so we went for a season without it again. And just constantly working to where, and you guys don't have to talk, but spontaneous versus planned. How does it work in y'all's lives? And it make it different. Knowing y'all have 4 kids back to back, so it may be completely different.
We have their best sleep's not between us now,
I can not imagine.
No hope right now for her sleeping by herself. So.
How do you, think about that.
on the days that he's off and after I take Natalie to school and stuff, if I come home and I don't have much to do that day, and he's off work for some, you know, he works swing shift, so it just depends on the day. You know, I can usually get real good and have Amelia have a breakfast, turn on cartoons, and say, honey, mommy's going to go take a shower. And I mean, it's more spontaneity than it is planned. If I plan it, it never happens. If I open my mouth, like, hey, how you feeling tonight? If I open my mouth, it doesn't happen. Every single time. I don't know what it is, but every single time I mention to him, how you feeling tonight? You know, you gonna be awake whenever I get done putting Amelia to sleep? He's like, yeah. It never happens. He's usually always awake, but it's always my end. Like, ugh, I'm so sorry. Or I fell asleep in there with her, and I don't make it to bed till 11 or 12. I mean, it just, something always happens whenever I try to plan it. It's always got to be spontaneous in my life.
Well, that's good to know. So you have kind of both sides there. Spontaneous doesn't work for me. I'm a planner.
I'm the spontaneous planner. If that makes sense at all. Like, I have like this controlling side of my, I like things to be in order and I like to know. So he might think it's spontaneous, but it's not at all. It's definitely never, it's never like, oh, sure, how about now? No, I've had that thought earlier today. I've made arrangements, like, we've had 2 kids in 2 years. We'll be married 3 years in May. So I have a 22-month-old and is he 8 months old yet? Almost 8 months old. And no, so if I didn't make that extra effort, it would never happen. It's definitely a choice. But it's definitely in his personality, that spontaneous, that different, you know, not always in our room, not always, like, I've had to learn things that I guess more so appeal to him. Like, to me, I never care, like, whatever. But I realize it's important to him. So, like I said, he may think, wow, you know, what a great plan, like, we're going to go here, or we have a house to ourselves. I make sure that everything's taken care of, but he just doesn't know how much effort really went into making sure that it's that way.
That's like the shower thing. He never expects it in the shower, but I've planned it out to where I could make sure she's fed and eating and content for the moment.
Right.
And then I go to it. So, I mean, it's more like I guess it is more planned.
I have teenagers too, but you can't fool like that.
Oh, wow.
you don't fool teenagers like that.
No, not at all.
No. We were at our sister-in-law's house for Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and so the house was packed out with family, and all of a sudden we're trying to find where they are, and the parents of the home were missing, and our kid is asking where something about Mom, and we're banging on the door, and I had something I'd left in their bathroom, which is in their bedroom, and so I was trying to get the hairdryer, and they're like, where'd they go? And literally probably like 7 minutes later, you know, the doors come open, she's getting out of the shower, and it's like, they needed something spontaneous fun. She probably had planned it, you know, and I'm like, I never even thought in the middle of the day. And so you're right, the woman I think has to do more planning, especially once kids are around. I've done it before where he's come home for lunch, and I've planned, okay, the kids are down, it's the middle of the day, this is something totally out of my normal, and you have to plan, for a woman has to plan. Mental there. So, and to a man, when I mention the word planning to him, he's like, that is not sex.
No, that is exactly how my husband, like I said, if I mention it, something always happens. He says, you can't plan that. He said, you can't plan having sex.
I think a woman has to, because we need.
Honey.
And here's the verse that you said you'd underline. You know, what do you do when you don't want to? When you know, and you know, maybe you maybe know I don't want to. I'm tired, but it has been this long. So, and she mentioned in here, you know, just take 15 minutes to kind of get ask for, you know, pray, get the renewed energy. God give this, and He will, because it's not just you, and that's where it becomes more of a prayer. It becomes more of a ministry. I don't know if she mentioned that in here too, didn't she? That it is actually a ministry to our husband. And I said, well, that's what I've been doing for the last, 6 years, is a ministry. I said, I'm looking forward to the day I get past the ministry, and start enjoying what God is, And I just think it's just a choice with us having the multiple kids. So I've had to do this too, where, okay, let me just go find something, and, it's going to be off in 30 seconds anyway, but at least it kind of maybe helps me get ready. So I will try to go change my clothes, and just wear something maybe at dinner or just something that he knows. And that's the other thing too. We have to have communication because we will tend to be silent, and then the next day we're both like, "Well, I was thinking it last night. Well, I was too. Well, why didn't you say something? Well, I was waiting for you to say something first." You know, to where, and that was where he was like, "I'm tired of being the initiator." You know, and so he was like,
Yeah.
"How
Me too.
do I initiate?" And a lot of, and I hate just asking, "Honey, are you asleep yet? Do you want to, and so where I do more of like change my clothes or something
Yeah.
like that. Kind of that's it. He knows. So it's not quite. I mean, it's halfway spontaneous, but yet it gives him a little bit of time.
Well, see, my thing is one of the things that I had done before is, like, I'll go a few days without even thinking about it. It doesn't even cross my mind. I've got stuff to do, every few days. Well, around that second day even,
Yeah.
he won't even touch me. And then I'll come up to him and start holding, touching him because I'm realizing he's not doing it to me. And then he's like, "Don't touch me. That's not yours." Just joking around. And I'm like, "You never do that to me." And I know it's because he's like, "Well, you've done without it for the past couple of days. Why can't you go a few more?" It's like he's almost trying to see if I even notice. And then, of course, that day, whenever he doesn't necessarily come up to me and grope me, I'm thinking, "What's wrong?" And then I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's been a couple of days." I mean, that's my key trigger is whenever he notices it after a day or two. I mean, he does. He'll let me know real quick.
Small story here that again was for me. Emerson Eggers shared a story of a daughter called up their mom and said, "We're not coming over for Sunday dinner tomorrow or this afternoon or whatever." And she's like, "What? Why not?" She said, "Oh, because John's in a tizzy today." She said, and I forget what it was. She asked her or what, "How long has it been since y'all have had sex?" And she said, 7 days. And she's like, her mom starts like disciplining her grown daughter. Like, how could you, how did she say, restrict something from him that only takes a matter of seconds on your end? That means so much to him. Why would you do that to him? And I'm thinking, dagger right here. Yeah, and that was interesting that the mom had enough openness with her daughter to say, "Shame on you. No wonder he's in a tizzy. It don't take nothing on your end." And he's been a different person.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's hear what Kevin Lehman has to say here.